India, as one of the most potential emerging markets in the world, claiming the second largest population on the globe, has endless factors and advantages that can make itself one of the most dominant power around the world. It, however, hasn't lived up to the world's expectations as problems emerged from various aspects. With serious corruption and bureaucracy in the government, huge disparity between countries and cities, limited social mobility, as well as unintegrated infrastructure, the road to dominance and prosperity for India is still a long way to go.
Good afternoon. Welcome to AWA Country Report. I am Wing.
I'm Amy.
And I'm Alan. The country focus this month is India. Today we're going to walk you through the dark sides of India and tell you the real stories behind the country.
India is one of the fast-growing countries in the world. It has a nickname of a second China. However, under the rapid growth, many fundamental problems in India still remain unsolved. It ranks 60 among 148 countries in the 2014 Global Competitiveness Report. What are the major problems being encountered by this factor-driven economy?
Today we are bringing 3 cases in India to you to illustrate the obstacles faced by the country. They are the problems of the infrastructure in India, the corruption, as well as the lack of social mobility under the caste system. We are bringing 3 cases that are bringing detrimental effects to the Indian society. Now, let's have a look at the problems within infrastructure.
Imagine this. You're going on a road trip with your friends in India. The roads are more rugged than the time back in South California. And every 30 miles, you're stopped by the tariffs and extra pay a large amount of tolls. And after a long day drive, you finally have yourself accommodated in a hostel near Mumbai. The water and electricity suddenly goes off at night. What would you think? India, as the second largest population in the world and the third purchasing power parity. Its infrastructure, however, ranks 85 out of 148, according to the World Competitiveness Report. Therefore, it is crucial for India to integrate its infrastructure so as to be a dominant power around the globe.
The infrastructure in India could be divided into 3 categories. They are telecommunications, energy, and transportation. When we further look into the questions, the energy industry, to begin with, is mostly controlled by the state-owned companies, especially in the aspect of natural gas and petroleum, where 90% of them are controlled by the state-owned companies, which has already led to questionable transparency and operational inefficiency.
Secondly, the problem also lies in India's transportation. With plenty of unfair tariffs and the terrible quality of roads, their transportation could be a stone that hinders the growth of India. And the common problems of India's infrastructure can be seen in the ineffective cooperative relations between the government and the private sectors.
Therefore, we have conducted an interview with an owner of countryside logistics company to ask him about his opinion towards the infrastructural issues in India.
Today, it is our pleasure to invite the owner of the Vi Logistics Company to share some ideas with us on his opinions of India's infrastructure as a whole, as well as some of your personal experiences. Good morning, Mr. Vaishak.
Good morning.
So Vaishak, could you share some of your personal experiences on the infrastructure of India?
Okay, no problem. I think India has great potentials in the development of infrastructure. For example, our output of electricity ranks the 5th in the world. Furthermore, we are developing the Delhi to Mumbai Industrial Corridor, which is the biggest infrastructure expansion project in history, with more than $100 billion infused.
Sounds really promising. So, is there anything that you are dissatisfied with?
Speaking of this, I'm really irritated by the government sector. Sometimes their attitude towards us is impatient and rude. And the form and formality really bothers me. Because I own a small logistics company, I rely heavily on the infrastructure of transportation. However, I'm always charged with a lot of tolls on every delivery.
I see. So the tolls have raised your costs a lot, haven't they?
Yes, And sometimes the demarcation on the responsibilities between the government and private sectors is unclear, and the miscommunication caused a lot of delays and uncertainties, and it has brought a lot of extra costs to my company.
So the problem also lies in between the government and the private sectors. And how is the dispute resolution mechanism?
It is really weak, and who has control over the capital has louder voice than us. I think the unbalanced power is the main problem in this case.
Thank you for your sharing. We hope these drawbacks could be solved as soon as possible so as to make India a more competitive country.
To simply put, India has a chance to stand higher in the global stage, but only after we solve the core problem between sectors.
And our suggestions would be firstly, structuring the projects more appropriately. Secondly, reducing the regulatory delays and uncertainties. Last but not least, managing the project more efficiently from bid to execution.
We hope that these suggestions will make India a more competitive country. Now, let's proceed to the second category, corruption.
Hey Wayne, apart from infrastructure, can you come up with another problematic factor that hinders India's future development?
Sure, I think that corruption is another serious problem in India.
Yes, India has been troubled by corruption for a long time. A 2005 study done by Transparency International in India found that more than 62% of the people had first-hand experience of paying bribe. Such pervasive existence showcases corruption as one of the biggest challenges that India is currently facing. Besides, in the 2013-14 Global Competitiveness Report, corruption is the third most problematic factor for doing business. Seeing this, the Indian government should do more to solve the harsh situation.
You're right. And it also should be noted that the corruption has a much bigger impact on the below poverty line household, since large expenditure of money as bribe could make their life even worse. However, without paying the bribe, they could not get access to the public service, such as electricity and water supply, even though some of the services are very essential for living or targeted at BPL households. Their requests of public service are often set aside or overlooked by the officials who give priority to people that benefit them. The corruption combined with universal poverty in India impose great difficulty on the living of BPL household.
Indeed, the corruption imposes great difficulties on people at the bottom of society. Now, let us bring in Alan from Delhi. Alan is currently talking to a father from BPL household about the corruption.
Thank you, Amy. So, Richard, how do you view the corruption in your country?
Yes, Alan. My family is deeply trapped in poverty. Sometimes my children and other family members are bullied by our neighbors. We tried to seek help from the police before, but they always ignore our request. People say that you need to bribe the police so that they can help you. But as you can see, we don't even have enough money to buy food and water to feed ourselves. How can we find extra money to bribe the police? The corruption really makes our lives much worse.
I'm so sorry to hear about that. And as we know that recently the government has published some laws aimed to get rid of corruption, do you think they work?
I don't think so. The corruption in public service remains at the same level. The laws and institutions are not fully implemented because no one is willing to forego the benefit that they can get out of it.
Thank you very much. I'll pass the time to Amy.
Thank you, Alan. Wayne, what do you think is a possible solution to solve the problem of corruption in India?
Inside the government, a more detailed reward and punishment system should be established. Reorienting the staff to serve the BPL households with special attention and on a priority basis is also required. Moreover, outside the government, the independent supervision organizations should be set up to inspect the inner operation of government and deal with the complaints from citizens.
Indeed, The government can do a lot to help alleviate the situation. Next, we will show you the story of a poor woman in rural part of India and illustrate the problem of lack of social mobility. Sophia is a typical lady born in the rural area in India, suffering from extreme poverty. She finds it impossible to get a job in the labor market due to her low educational level and sexual discrimination. And she is living at the bottom of the society under the social hierarchy system in India.
I attended primary school. It is impossible for me to get a job here. Most employers just reject me because they think I'm a weak and unskilled woman. Under the caste system in India, once you're in the class of Sudras, you have to stay in this place forever. You have no chance to move out.
The caste system is still deeply rooted in India as the years go by. Under the social hierarchy system, Indians are divided into 5 classes, namely Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaisyas, Sudras, and Pariah. Sadly, the class of Sudras, which are the unskilled workers and peasants, are the biggest group in India. Once you're Sudras or Pariah, you can hardly move up to other classes.
I am living with my mother-in-law, my husband, and 4 children. We mainly rely on my husband's source of income and struggle to make a living. He earns around 2,500 rupees a month.
Which is just around $60. Boiled rice is the only food for Sophia and her family every day. Sometimes, Sophia would go to pick up some trash with her children to get some extra money. Piles of trash are seen from the slum where Sophia's family lives in. It smells really bad and is seriously contaminated. The hygiene is really poor, and clearly it is a place without hope.
Sometimes I feel really desperate and hopeless when I look at my 4 lovely children. While some other Indian children from urban areas are going to school happily and leading a life of fulfillment, I can't even afford them a normal meal, let alone attending high school.
She sees no hope under the hierarchy system in India, where it is nearly impossible to climb up to others' social ladder. Nobody born in the slum can escape from the tragic fate here. And Sophia does not walk alone.
Housing facilities, no water, no sanitation, and no land for us. We are forced to live in these slums, and looks we will be here for the rest of our lives.
The lack of social mobility makes this place hopeless. However, while they suffer, many rich people from upper classes are lavishing their money.
The disparity between the rural and urban area and the lack of social mobility in India is so heartbreaking. And the disparity has seriously impeded its development as a fast-growing country. What can the government do to help?
The government can actually help by providing more welfare and setting policies. Firstly, by improving the transportation system, as aforementioned. Education could be more accessible to the next generation. As they become more knowledgeable, they will have a higher probability to climb up to other social ladders and get more opportunities in the society.
Apart from this, the government can also launch more poverty alleviation campaigns in the rural area. The focus of the short-term campaigns can be providing daily necessities and food to make the poor self-sufficient to make a basic living. In the long run, more employment opportunities should also be provided by the government to guarantee that those people who are willing to work hard can get a job in the market and sustain a living.
With these measures provided, the disparity between rural and urban area would be enhanced, and women like Sophia can lead a happier life.
India, as one of the potential countries in the world, has plenty of aspects expected to thrive, yet room to improve as well.
With regards to infrastructure, firstly, it should have more appropriate project structuring. Secondly, the regulatory delays and uncertainties should be reduced. Last but not least, fostering the efficiency of project management from bid to execution is important as well.
On the other hand, the problem associated with corruption should be tackled as soon as possible. Inside the government, there should be a more integrated system of reward and punishment. In addition, reorienting the staff to serve the BPL household is urgently required as well. And outside the government, it would be better to set up independent supervision organizations to oversee the operation of the government.
Finally, regarding the aspect of disparity within India, the government should firstly improve the transportation system so as to make education more accessible. Secondly, in the short run, the poverty alleviation campaign should be held more frequently. And in the long run, the government should provide more employment opportunities in order to sustain the living of the Indian people.
With these measures provided, we look forward to see the unprecedented improvement and growth of India.
Thanks for joining AWA at the front line of India's problem. See you next week.